The next item on the agenda is the court budget, and we have Judge Biernat.
Hello, you all know, well, most of you, I think almost everybody knows me. I'm Judge Biernat from Macomb County Circuit Court and Probate Court in the 42nd District Courts. I have my staff here, if they can come up. Everyone can come up. I just brought everybody here, so. Support staff. My court administrator, Julie Bovashan. John Nizel's my deputy court administrator. Nicole Foltz is our juvenile administrator, who's over to. Tom Blum is our friend of the court administrator. John Brennan is probate administrator, and Lisa Ellis is our specialty courts administrator. Well, it's called the court services. Court services, yes. Oh, and
Susan's our finance director.
Oh, Susan Sabo is our finance director.
And Dave Joseph is our program director for juvenile.
That's right. And so the courts are running smoothly. We have a lot of stuff going on right now, obviously. It's very loud in our courtroom because of the construction. We are asking, primarily, we're asking for small increases in our in certain line items that concern juries, expert witnesses, court-appointed attorney fees, and that's primarily because we've had it's over, I think, a 30% increase. Is it over 30% increase, 33% increase of criminal jury trials from last year, and so our judges are busy. And but other than that, everything's going well. We saved the county, the general fund, $100,000 in our request for the juvenile, placing out the juveniles, keeping more people, new juveniles in the juvenile center. So any questions that you have, I'm more than happy to try to help out, and all my staff is willing to answer any questions. Yeah, Steve was. There's like a fly in here.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't hear you.
I had a longer speech, but this fly was bothering me. I could not concentrate. It's a new technique on the board of commissioners, so the flies over there.
Yeah, I in general, the courts are not asking for any new positions this year. I think the front of the court actually reduced one position, if I'm not mistaken. I can go very briefly, division by division by division, if you want me to. You know, the circuit court has some, somewhat significant increase in supplies and services. That's about $200,000. It's about $100,000 in court-appointed attorney fees, $50,000 in jury fees, $25,000 in expert witness fees. That's really, in my mind, the only major change on the operating side for the circuit court. Again, no new positions in the circuit court. Revenues are relatively consistent with prior years. I can continue on if you so wish. The district courts are on pages C26 and C27. The New Baltimore Court, the budget is down about $80,000 maybe. The largest item in that line item or budget that's going down is the pension retiree health care line item. You'll also see about a $20,000 decrease in supplies and services. If you'll recall, when we talked about the IT budget, we were transferring some support costs for their Quadtran system from the district courts to the IT department. It's about $26,000. So that's what's going on in that line item. The Romeo Court, same things going on in supplies and services. There's about a $26,000 decrease in support costs for Quadtran, which basically brings that budget down to a flat amount from 2017. Slight decrease in repairs and maintenance. The overall budget's down $75,000, which again you're going to see, a $35,000 decrease in the pension and retiree health care costs. There is, if you go to page, I'm gonna go to the juvenile court, which is on page C47. Again, there's about a $30,000 decrease in overall costs. There's about a $30,000 increase in the supplies and services from the current year amended to the next year's, or 2018 recommended. There's about a $20,000 increase in litigation expense, which the court can probably, talk about, and an $8,000 increase in cell phones. Again, no new positions there. The probate court, I do have an amendment that I need to propose. So if you look at the probate court budgets on page C50, you'll see that that budget's actually going down about $49,000, $50,000. The amendment that I would like to propose is a $10,000 increase in guardian ad litem costs, which is under the supplies and services line item, and a $4,000 increase in the book line item, which is also in supplies and services. You'll see as presented, that budget's maybe $11,000 decrease. So really, this brings that back up to basically where it was in 2017. What's happened there was, when we put the budget together, we were looking in June and July at spending patterns, and things were not trending where they were in prior years, so we lowered the budgets. Mr. Brennan called me today, and I looked, and he said, well, wait a minute, things are trending back to where the budget was, and so I think there was some staff changeover at the probate court, so maybe the bills were delayed in getting to our office during the budget cycle. So these two adjustments or proposed amendments would then bring those line items back into line with the 2017 amounts. Again, no new positions. The budgets are fairly consistent. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to any of that or have any other questions.
So Steve, the guardian ad litem increase is not as a result of giving any increase to the
No, we
attorneys, but...
reduced the budget. We're bringing it back up to where it was.
Okay.
It's, I think it was $100,000. We cut it to 90. It's trending more toward the 100.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank both of you for being here. Just want to make sure I understand it, the broad budget here. It seems like the increases that are existing are being driven by, as the judge said, more court cases going to trial, so we're having to pay more appointed attorney fees and jury fees and that sort of thing. So that,
If you go to trial in a criminal case, it's more likely that a defense counsel at that point would ask for an expert on whatever issue there is. So there's more of a likelihood that actually, someone would be requesting an expert.
okay. Okay, so that's helpful. I appreciate that. And then I think, Steve, this is a little broader, but it seems like every department is going up in supplies all the time. That's usually one of the bigger jumps. Is there something happening with supply costs across departments?
You probably have inflationary increases, but I mean, you could go I don't know. We could go department by department, kind of analyze line item by line item, see if there's what's exactly going on. There's slight increases here or there.
Yeah, I haven't analyzed, but it just seems like that's always one of the things that we're going back to, saying, well, the supplies have increased this year by X, and it's always more than a 5% increase. At least it seems that way. Maybe I'll have to go back and look at the other budgets
Yeah,
of the
depending
departments.
on department by department, depends on the line items within that category within a department. In the case of the courts, for example, the defense attorneys, the court-appointed attorneys are on that line item, so you might see a large spike that's beyond some normal expectation for an increase. Most often it's postage, books, office supplies, advertising, printing. I mean, that's kind of the big ones I think of.
I'll see if I can go back and look at that. It just
Yeah.
seems like that was the thing that keeps standing out as something that's jumping up
Yeah,
more
I know.
significantly. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, question for you. New Baltimore and Romeo. What is the and I couldn't figure it out. What is the number that they're subsidized out of the general fund? Anything anymore?
No, you'll see in the bottom line, the expenditures in each of those courts exceed the revenue. So on the very last double underline numbers with dollar signs where it says revenues over under expenditures,
That's each year what's coming out?
that's what the, basically the general fund is, if you want to look at it that way, is what the
No,
the general fund is subsidizing.
And I guess, which one built the new court? They both have
New
bond.
Baltimore. New Baltimore.
Well, let me back up. So that bonding issue for those buildings are not in their budget here, so we would have to look somewhere else. So if somebody says.
It's in
what-
debt service.
Okay, but if somebody said, what does it cost to run that jail? I can't really look at this, or the court, rather. I can't look at this because this budget is telling me this is my operating budget. It's not, though you do have a line for, capital outlay and everything else, you don't have the debt service on here for that. I don't know, maybe other commissioners know what the cost is for those courts. But this comes down to a point where New Baltimore, if I say, 2017 forecasted, $770,000 is coming out of the general fund to subsidize that jail. I go into that court, I apologize. I go into the Romeo, 17 is $308,000. Now, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a judge, and hopefully I don't visit them for any other reasons. Is one running much more efficiently? Because it's not the cost because it's not built in here. Why is one court double to the general fund than the other one? I mean, that has to be asked. Because the residents where I live and the
More of a
taxpayers that I
drain
represent
than-
pay for their district court
than Romeo.
in their own community.
revenue
Yes.
spine, because Leduc has more people.
And I got major issues, and I've had this every year, and I'm sorry to belabor this, everyone, but it's important that we say, hey, hang on a minute. These courts are costing the whole county out of our general fund to subsidize these, correct?
Yeah, the total of the two, there's $1 million.
No?
And New Baltimore has more, but their dockets are bigger than the Romeo docket, the
Baltimore
caseload.
is larger than Romeo's substantially. The personnel is slightly larger there, so their operating costs are going to be higher. Double is a little extreme, and we can look into that a little further to see.
I'm just looking at the numbers that are provided to me, and it's over double. And if other communities can operate within these budgets, how come we can't if we're in charge of, or the county's in charge of them financially? And this isn't showing the true debt of what this is costing, that I don't know if a lot of the commissioners know of the, I believe it's New Baltimore that just got redone a couple of years ago, 3-4
Yeah, a
years
few
ago.
years ago.
And there's a bond on that the county's paying for, not the residents in those communities. So the residents in these communities that can support their own district court are paying for their own district court, however they choose to build that process, and then they're also assisting these other communities. I still think this is wrong, and at the end of the day, I think this still needs to be addressed. It's not fair to the other taxpayers in the county. So Steve, change it. Now, the last question I have, Your Honor, this would be for you. Are we done with new judges, or we still got another one coming on?
The state
Yeah, one in
legislature.
19.
Well, we have one coming on, it'll be a seat, in 18, there'll be an open seat for one of the additional judges. That person will take office in January of 19. That would be it.
So in January of 19, there'll be an automatic increase to the budget because of the new position that's going on. You'll have a secretary, you'll have the,
I think he's estimated for it already, right,
Yeah.
Steve? in our
was
budget.
it coming in 18? Because I don't
It
see it.
starts in 19.
So-
Starts
so
in
physical
19, yeah.
19. Okay, all right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Chris Smith?
Thank you. I have to touch on Commissioner Carabelli's comments, Steve, is that I know Clinton Township doesn't go to, the Clinton Township District Court doesn't ask for money from Clinton Township. They make ends meet over there. I'm talking to a trustee from Clinton Township that's sitting right here also that knows that. So I guess to Commissioner Carabelli's point, why don't our district courts sustain themselves, right? I mean, I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And I don't know if it's an inherent problem that they know they're going to get money from the county to subsidize and they haven't cut and tried to actually, get into that self-sustaining mode because we haven't made them all this time, or what? I don't understand, because I'm guessing most communities are, their district courts are fairly self-sufficient, or the communities wouldn't be able to afford them. I don't know. I just know Clinton Township is, and I'm just wondering, if maybe we need to look at that along with why one of them's double the cost or over double the cost. So that being said, I have a couple questions regarding position changes. I know we're not asking for new positions, but we're eliminating some positions and moving people into other positions. And so my question is, this happens not with the courts necessarily, but this happens in the county all the time. We don't need this position. We're going to move this person up to a higher paying position. And then next year or the year after, when everybody's kind of forgot about this, we need another recorder secretary or a dictation clerk or data entry clerk because we've just dropped them from 10 to 9, 16 to 15, or 12 to 11. And then all of a sudden, we're making these requests a year later to re-up these spots. So, I'm just wondering if any of you, can tell me that we have decided for sure we don't need that many recorder secretaries or dictation clerks or data entry clerks, and we've looked at this in the long term, that's going to be a position that will be eliminated and not requested again next year.
And that is front of the court.
So this is, friend of the court, right?
Tom?
May I address?
Oh, I love it.
Tom Blum.
Hi, Tom.
I'm Tom Blum, the director of the Friend of the Court, and I appreciate you letting me have the opportunity to address your board. Briefly, as managers, we have an opportunity to change some of the culture at the Friend of the Court, and we've charged them with doing a better job with customer service, right? That's been kind of our bane in the past and something we're trying to get past. But for that to happen, we really need to support our employees. And part of that is providing them adequate direction and vision, adequate access to our supervisors, which really has not been happening at this particular point, and provide them adequate feedback on the job that they're doing. We have our clerical services supervisor, the one that we're asking to elevate, is right now responsible for, out of our 71 clerical spots, we have 106 total employees, she's responsible for 51 direct reports. It's unsustainable. She's running around chasing her tail and really not providing the support for our staff that they need and that they deserve. We're asking for the elimination of a data entry clerk position, which, by the way, we can ask for because of one of our other supervisors was able to, a real good supervisor, was able to streamline some of the processes in that department and job share, and we were able to eliminate that position specifically because of that supervisor. So we're asking for 2 working supervisors that will probably remove at least 26 of those employees from her direct responsibility and allow her to do some of the things that she needs to do, which are provide employee feedback. Let them know how they're doing, train, perhaps even develop a training manual and provide them direction. So that really is the crux as to why we're doing this. It's to move forward. I don't feel that the staff has been adequately supported in quite a while. We want to do some other things with our supervisors as well in terms of making them available to other people besides those in their own department.
Okay, Tom, I
The long
appreciate,
answer, I'm
I
sorry.
appreciate that, and I'm not asking, I mean, you run your department the way you see fit, and that's fine. My question really is, of those 3 positions that we're losing, and I don't know, see, you don't sit here, you don't see it, I've seen it for 7 years, that we don't need this, you can take this out of our budget, and then the next year it comes back as, well, it comes back as an ask, where, because we needed to get something, and I'm thinking of other departments, by the way,
Sure.
at this point. We don't need, you can take, $100,000 out of this because we don't need it. We need this position. Well, then we get this position, and then the next year, that all of a sudden comes back into the budget that we need this, and then all of a sudden we're actually adding another position, or we're adding another 100,000 to supplies and services to, just to kind of to move that budget up. So that's my big question, is just to make sure, and you explained one of them adequately, that we've, streamlined out of needing one of the recorders, data dictation clerks. And my question is kind of overall, have we really looked at this and said, we do not need these positions, and we don't see them in the foreseeable future needing that position back?
Well, the only position we're asking to eliminate is a data entry clerk position. We're asking to elevate the clerical services supervisor position to clerical services director. That would allow her to spend some time on some of the things we really need to do, we really need for her to do for the staff. And the other two positions would be elevated slightly to supervisor positions that would allow them to supervise so staff has access to them.
No, and I understand that, but as supervisors, all of a sudden you leave a void sometimes
No,
in the
no,
Indians.
they're working
so-
supervisors.
Okay.
They're working supervisors.
And if Tom asks for that position back next year, I'll remind you, remember Commissioner Smith's question last year. Just be prepared.
Okay. And
Where's that fly when you need it, Judge?
Yeah. Okay, and that makes sense. I just want to say that I think that this board is starting to look a little closer at those, since, I want to say, having that come to us several times over the last bunch of years in that way that I put it. So I trust that that's the way it's going to be, and thank you very much for that answer.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, Your Honor, this question's for you. On your supplemental sheet, you have 2018 goals. One of them is the implementation of the SWIFT and SURE program. What is that program?
That is, Lisa can answer this.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
like a specialty court. It's going to be Judge Massaroni, James Massaroni's court, correct?
Correct.
And you did.
Swift and Sure Sanction Probation is a new program that's been started in the state of Michigan, modeled after a program in Hawaii. And it's just a new method for probation, for felony probation supervision. It's lumped in under the specialty courts because it's grant funded by the State Court Administrative Office, but it's not a treatment court like the rest of the specialty courts. It's just a more intense track of probation. So it'll be under Judge Massaroni. We're starting with 10 to 20 people for the first year to pilot it and see how it goes, and it's funded, we have a $70,000 grant from the state for this year.
Okay. Okay.
Solely funded by grant money.
Solely funded by grant money. Okay.
Solely funded by grant money.
All right. One other question. The long-term goals are to relocate the probate court to the current court building. I mean, we're doing construction over there right now.
Yes.
All right. So, is any of that long-term thinking being implemented in the construction that's going on over there now?
Well, we went with the architect, Julie and I.
It's part of the construction
The
project.
construction of the 5th floor, that's where the probate court, judges, and their staff's going to be.
Okay.
So the two courts that are being built out on the 5th floor will be probate courts.
Excellent.
And the administration area where the administration will be a probate administration. It won't be effective until the very end of the construction project because every time we close a floor, we need to move the judges off. So it probably won't be until 2019.
They will be the last.
The last move.
They'll be the last move. And we did meet with the architect. What was the architect's name?
John Shields from Wheatley.
Okay, we met with him.
And I don't know if you would know this, Steve, or if these folks know it. Is that part of the capital expenditures that we have, or is this strictly coming out of circuit court budget to relocate the probate court and build those rooms?
No, that's all part of the construction
The
project.
capital,
Yep.
the construction project. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Regarding the district court debate, this goes on every year about how the district courts out in the north end of the county, the rural part of the county, less populated part of the county, can't support themselves and how somehow they're doing something wrong. But in fact, isn't it true, Judge, that the district courts out there, the state of Michigan takes about a half of the proceeds and every ticket that's written out there, takes it back and puts it to the state of Michigan. We tried some years ago to get that revenue changed, to get that law changed by the state. Maybe it's time for us to take another press that issue again now that Michigan's under better times and see if we can't get the state of Michigan to release their fingers out of the till that goes to every ticket that's written out in Romeo, the north end of the corridor, and from New Baltimore for that matter. The state of Michigan takes a big chunk of it and puts it back in their coffers to support their operations independent of what our operations need here. And that's probably going to go a long way to resolving the problem about this gap in funding to help make them more self-sufficient. But I'll remind this board also that that court is a county function. The county's required to provide those court services out there to the northern end of the county, just the way we are required to provide jail services for everyone across the county. We don't account for every person that comes from other parts of the county into our jail and say, well, there's more people coming from, by a proportion of the population, coming to the Macomb County Jail from Warren than there are from Richmond Township. Well, we don't play those games. We're required to provide services for the entire county. And so we don't want to get in this game of, because there's fewer people out there, they're not paying their fair share because they simply can't. So just so remind the board that. And I'm all for leading another effort. We tried it several years ago under State Senator Sanborn at the time, and that effort failed. But maybe we could try it under new leadership.
I was just driving my car the other day and I saw this bumper sticker that said Lucido for Senate, and some guy named Pete Lucido. You never see him or hear from him. But
He's pretty quiet. He's a quiet individual. But as someone who understands the courts, and is a bulldog, so perhaps we can get him in our entire Macomb County delegation to make sure that, that to help the state of Michigan stay out of our pocketbook. So, thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
No, I wanted to speak on the same thing, Jim. You have to get behind me in line.
Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. Well, I know with respect to that. Oh, sorry. Actually, he doesn't.
Where's the court officer? Do you have a court officer in here?
Court officer, where's your court officer, right,
Could have brought him in here.
Okay. Actually, Commissioner Brown, I think the reason that the counties handled it was rural areas like you're speaking. I think the issue has become when townships actually build up to where they're larger than cities, and we're still paying for the services, but they now have the tax population, and they're reaping the benefits of that. And you can tell by looking at the brand new facilities and the things that are built in those communities that they're benefiting. Your area, I agree with you. Because of the rural nature, there's a reason that that was originally set up that way. I mean, if you ever reach the point where every block is built up like some of these other communities, then I'd probably say, now wait a second, the tax structure's going into, those areas. But New Baltimore's different. And, we've talked about this with different services. And not all district courts are able to make money, and a lot of cities do have to supplement them. And specifically, cities don't have the deep pockets to build new courts. We are desperately in need of a new court in East Point because the state has said, you guys are so busy, you need another judge, and we don't have anywhere to put another judge. So they're trying to figure out how could we come up with money to build a court. If they had the deep pockets of the county, we could say, hey, the state has said, and we'd probably be able to get that. So that's a legislative thing, in my opinion. I do understand with regard to how much money is spent there and the cost of it, but I think that's a legislative issue, and I don't think it applies to your area, at least right now. The reclassifications. We're doing a compensation study, and did that include these positions?
They must have, yes.
So we said last year during budget, listen, we just paid all this money for a compensation study, and all of a sudden everybody's asking to reclassify this person and reclassify that, and we said, we don't disagree with you, but let's get our compensation study. If we do all these reclassifications now and we get the compensation study in January, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I mean, what I would like to do is I'd like to leave it, but not with the understanding it's going to stay that way. I'd like to be able to see the compensation study, because all of these pieces of the county play into each other. And we may have positions that have a nice title, and that's the interesting thing about our titles. For years, we didn't give raises. We said we didn't give raises, but a lot of administrators came forward and said, well, we're going to reclassify this person. So they were giving raises. But in the meantime, we got 50 million different titles, and we don't know how to compare them to each other. So I'm not against doing it, but I just don't see doing it right before the compensation study that actually looks at those positions comes out. That doesn't mean everybody else agrees with me. So, but you look like you want to say something. Do you want to say something with respect to that?
Thank you.
Not in public.
That's not true. No, I understand your point, and that certainly was something that we were considering at the time that we were going to ask for this. But the reclass has been talked about for quite a number of years. This is a need that is dramatically affecting our office, and I'm being honest with you. The current position and the current duties of that position, with everything that it encompasses, is unsustainable.
It was talked about for years, and I agree with you. I voted against the commission when the money was put in a budget and the commission took it out. It's been paid for, and I believe it's been completed, or at least it's at the end of completion, and my understanding is we're going to, Bob, do you know where that stands on the compensation study? Is it completed? Are we going to be getting it soon?
I think it would be better to ask Steve. He probably has more information on when we're going to receive that. I have no real information on that.
Excuse me, may I make just one more short comment? These positions are only being reclassified to the supervisor, the two recording court, the one recording court position, and a dictation clerk position. The only real reclass, I think, is the clerical services supervisor being elevated to the position of director.
I guess more directly to your question, Commissioner, my understanding is that the classification piece of the study is done. The compensation portion of the study is very close to being done. I don't know the exact timeline. It's very close to being done in its totality.
Okay. And with respect to Commissioner Leonetti's question regarding the probate court move, the original $65 million plan, was the probate court move included in the original 65?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. So they indicated that they recently met with the architects. Was there a need to do any design changes?
I was not part of that process, so I can't answer that. I don't know.
They've completed the 6th floor, and the judges have moved in, and we've had several complaints about certain items, and we're just trying to make sure we can fix them before we start the 5th floor, designing or completing those courtrooms. So we're just trying to make a few, they're not huge changes, but the seating isn't sufficient for the court reporter and the court clerks. We're trying to make a spot a little bigger so that people can both fit in the area, just certain things. And Judge and I were actually both not on the project when it started, so we're having trouble tracking historically, like where the design came from and why they did it that way. And we're working with the architects right now just to fix those things now that the 6th floor is finished, so we don't have the same problems on the 5th floor.
And slight adjustment on like the jury box so the jurors can see. On the 6th floor, there was.
Are you adjusting on the one that was already done or adjusting on the new one?
The new ones, the 5th floor.
Okay, but you're leaving the one that was already done that way for now?
For now, yes.
Okay, because every design change is a cost.
We understand that, and we're trying very hard not to make design changes. It's just, there's a few things that were a little extreme that we really would like fixed before we have the same issues.
Well, we had some things fixed up here, and I'm just starting to realize how much they cost. And I wasn't part of deciding to change them, but I don't think everybody understood when they changed things what they were adding to the cost of this. So I appreciate your being aware of that.
Yeah, they're telling us everything, and we're being very conscious of that. We're minimal changes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Leonetti, support by Drollet. Please vote on your iPad.